Yeah, so, this is going to be a little bit different Hallow Thanksmas just because nothing's been getting done in the Congress for the last 40 days or so. So what I think will happen is that the government's going to reopen it. The vote's expected in the House around 7 p.m. tonight. There could be a little bit of issues around vote counts on the Republican side, but ultimately I think this gets to the president's desk. And then we got to figure out what's coming up next. And we really think there are three things, but most of it's not coming from Congress. Obviously the Supreme Court and the tariff discussion is obviously we're going to have a decision most likely in December. We're most likely going to see the Supreme Court rule against the president when it comes to tariffs. Then when it would open what is known as refund chaos, just for what it's worth, you can't get refunds by electronic check. You're going to have to get it by paper check. That's going to take years. And then you're going to have things like the farmer bailout, and also you're going to have a crypto market structure bill from the Senate Banking and Senate Ag committees. They're going to come out of the gate. But I will just say is that a lot of this is going to get wrapped up by the first part of December because Congress and policymakers don't want to be here in Washington. They want to be home and having their holiday parties at home.
Jeez. I mean, the House of Representatives, they've been home for more than 50 days. This is such a bad look. But tell us how a government reopens, Nathan. This isn't the first rodeo for this government.
Yeah, my wife asked me this morning, does this mean we're going to see everybody on the roads tomorrow? And, fortunately for her, the answer is not really. So what happens is President Trump will sign the deal. This will then just say we're going to have to reopen. And then each agency is going to have their own procedure of how they're going to reopen the government. Now, most importantly for the markets, the SNAP benefits, they're not going to come back in one big swoop. It's going to be a small trickle. But from the economic, at least for the market impact.
Nathan, stop there. Why in God's name, if we say, okay, SNAP is back, I don't like it's food stamps, folks. Nathan Dean, why do food stamps have to come back in a trickle?
Well, it's just operationally. I mean, if you think about the U.S. government, it's not the most efficient thing out there. And so it's not like there's just one button that can say, go press that button and distribute those food aids. There are individuals and there's paperwork and there's so forth that has to go through this. And so when you're talking about doling money out to the states and then the states take that money and then subsequently put it into their own programs, it's going to take a couple of days. And so, even though that we have seen some headline risk when it comes to like Walmart and Kroger for this, we've taken the approach that if this money ultimately comes out in November, and it will still be spent and then obviously will then go back to Walmart and Kroger. So you're not going to see much of a hit there. But, I think the one other thing to keep in mind is data. We've been operating for about 40 days now without government data. We're going to get a lot of data coming out fairly quickly, and there's really no process of how that comes out. I think what's going to happen here is that each agency is going to create their report, and they're going to say, okay, here we go, send it out. So traders and market participants are going to have to be really careful, at least keep their eyes open, because you're going to be hit with data, and that data may be different than what your expectations were when we didn't have that data.
So stay tuned to your Bloomberg terminal is the message there, I think. Is there any question as to the quality of the data? Is this going to be rushed? Are the processes going to be different? Should we be questioning the data at all?
No, I just think the tamper expectations on timing. Like I said before, I don't think everybody's going to be driving back to the BLS tomorrow morning. The data will probably come out in just in little waves. And so I don't think you're going to see anything in terms of the quality of the data. I think it's just going to be, look, it's November. I just don't think it's going to come out all early next week. It's going to take a couple of days, to get the government reopened and operating again.